Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.
What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Get out there, play hard, enjoy those games.
Welcome to Go Big or Go Home. I am Old Man Troy, joined by the spectacular youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter. We are recording today from the Interpeak Coffee virtual studio. How are you doing today, youngster?
Doing good. Today's show is a little different. We're talking college basketball for the first time in, I think, a while.
What?
But there's...
What are we talking about on the big show? Basketball?
Yeah. That sport still exists. Yeah. So college basketball for a little bit. Obviously, Pac-12 and, their whole shindig that's going on there, what they're fighting for. But we also have a very special guest on today's show.
We do. We actually have the owner of Interpeak Coffee, who is our sponsor for our virtual studio. Shane, thanks for joining us today. How you doing?
Hey, guys. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So, Shane, like I told you before the show, this is your platform. We're excited to have Interpeak as our sponsor. I know you and I have talked, but give the listeners a little background, how you started it, how they can get great coffee, and, give them all the nuts and bolts of Interpeak.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it kind of started as an idea a few years ago. My wife and I, we've been working pretty hard our whole lives, and we've always just been interested in, at some point, owning our own business, and we've kicked around some ideas in the past. And as we've grown as a family and added on now to our tribe of us 2 plus 3 kids, there's always been one common theme between all of us, and especially myself and my wife, and it's been coffee and how much we really rely on it on a daily basis, to get us through some of these days. And a few months ago, we were able to officially release our brand new coffee company, Interpeak Coffee, which you can find on interpeakcoffee.com. We're solely a website at this point. We don't actually have a brick and mortar store, but our goal is to try to get everybody gourmet coffee that's delivered right to your door for free. So especially during these times when going out in public isn't always the easiest option, we're proud to offer all of our customers free shipping right to their door. So again, it's just something that started off as a small dream of me and my wife, and over the last 3-4 months, we've actually been able to officially roll this out, and we couldn't be happier with the response that we've gotten so far.
Well, I go on the website, Shannon. The neat thing, and the youngster likes this because he can see his mom's name on the bottom of the screen. Whenever somebody orders, it pops up on the bottom. I think it's pretty cool. I think it is one of those neat things how you kind of pat your customers on the back, give them a little shout out on the website. I think that's cool.
Well, that's the trick too. Is we're a small company in a big industry where some of these giant coffee makers have unlimited budgets. Where we're still a family-owned business, and we're trying to market ourselves in unique ways that our customers appreciate without having to spend high-end dollars. So you won't be seeing us on any ESPN commercials, but you might be seeing us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, those kind of platforms that allow us to get out there and spread our name without having to spend all the money. And that's kind of how we also keep our costs down. We're able to deliver such high-end coffee at real reasonable prices.
Well, I was going to just say, and you kind of just answered the question. I'm like, you just talk about these big coffee companies, the Starbucks, and all these names that I see, and I've said it a million times since you come aboard as our sponsor. I never really bought coffee beans before because when I go to the store and I look at Starbucks and I look at all this, even the ground coffee for these people, it's outrageous. And I'm like, no, I'll stick to my Maxwell house because I'm not paying this amount of money. And then I looked at your prices, and for a small company, my question was, how do you keep the prices down? Because your coffee is affordable beyond belief for the regular consumer, and that's our listening audience, like blue-collar, white-collar people that are getting by. The prices are so affordable. That was my question to you. How do you keep the prices low being a small market and competing against the big guys, because you're charging less than they are?
That's honestly a great question. I'm glad you asked. I probably couldn't have written that better myself. So how we operate is we roast all our coffee directly when it's ordered, and then we bag it and ship it out immediately. So it's always fresh, and we're not paying for warehouses of this stuff to be stored. We're not sitting on a huge inventory where coffee can start to go bad and things like that. So that's really how we keep our overhead costs down, is we don't have inventory sitting anywhere. When you place an order through our website at interpeakcoffee.com, the order goes into production at that time. It's roasted to order, bagged, and shipped out as quickly as we can, which is usually within the business day.
Wow. You awake over there, youngster? I feel like Shane and I are taking up all the conversation.
I know, I am. I'm listening.
You like to get your naps in. You darn millennial.
You might need some coffee.
I do need some coffee. Yeah, I was listening in, obviously, the entire time. I was looking up some stuff on the computer at the same time. But Shane, I guess from a shipping perspective, like, how important was it to you? How much does it affect your business to, I guess, from a bottom line perspective, like to say free shipping, you don't have to worry about it? And how much of a factor do you feel like that plays in, getting everyday Americans to say, hey, you know what, this is actually worth it, compared to going to Walmart, Target, their local grocery store for coffee?
Yeah, Amazon has spoiled everybody in recent years, right, with being able to offer 2-day and sometimes next day shipping. They've almost created an unrealistic expectation for the average online shopper. I'm guilty of it myself. If I need something, I'll go on somebody's website and it'll say it's going to be here in 7 days. That's unacceptable. But that's the culture we're kind of in now. So we try to, stay up to par with what everybody else is doing in the industry. And during COVID and all this, it's been a great reception where people can shop from the comfort of their home and get free shipping, and it's something you don't have to worry about. You don't get that sticker shock either when you're shopping on our website and have a few items in your cart and go to pay and have this extra shipping charges sitting there waiting for you. So it's just a way that we can try to help, drive our customers and keep them happy.
Yeah, so not only is it affordable coffee, for everybody listening in today, Shane has given our show a promo code, SPORTS, SPORTS. So when you go to your cart and you check out, use the promo code, 10% off your order. So not only are you getting affordable coffee, you're getting 10% off just because you listen to the show. What a great deal. So, Shane, I know you're in Wisconsin where I am, and that's kind of how we hooked up and kind of how we started connecting a little bit. It was because of a post, but then we're both from Wisconsin, said, hey, this will work. So I know you're a Big Ten fan. I know you're a Badger fan. I've seen it in all your pictures. So you got Badger shirts. I know you're a Badger fan. So we're going to talk Big Ten sports today. Like I told you before the show, feel free to jump in. We may direct something to you and just get your thoughts. But, youngster, we got to get into this. And I said it on our regular radio show that we recorded yesterday. We're going to gloat today because this Pac-12 story has just escalated to a national level. And, by the way, last week on Go Big or Go Home, we talked about the Pac-12 and unionizing college football. So we sat back in the corner on Sunday and yesterday with our arms crossed saying, yeah, we're ahead of this game. But now, Kevin, we're going to dig in deeper because the demands are out. The players are out. They're going to boycott. Got coaches telling players to pack up their locker and go home. This may spin out of control right now, and it prompted a poll question on LinkedIn. Simple poll question by me. Should college athletes be paid? We've talked about this for the last 5 years on the show because it comes up every year. And every year I get worked up about it, but I'm going to share some of the thoughts, some of the comments that were on the poll in these last 2 days. And right now, by the way, yesterday when we recorded radio, no was winning. Yes is winning today by 6 percentage points. Just letting you know. So what do you think, youngster? Where are we going to go? Where are we going to start this? I don't want to spend a lot of time because you and I could talk about this for about 4 hours.
Yeah. To keep it as short as possible, I mean, ultimately I think that it's fair to say that as a viewer, looking from the outside in, if you have head honchos of a company and we'll say college football has its head coaches, the conferences, the schools as themselves, the NCAA, like those are the head honchos of the sport. The people doing the work, so to say, and don't get me wrong, coaches obviously do work. These schools do work for, a number of things to help provide for these programs, to help elevate these programs to where they are. But the players are the ones that ultimately, like, I watch college football for the players. I don't watch it for the coaches. I don't watch it for even the fans on the stands. I don't watch it because it's Wisconsin, because it's Ohio State, because it's Penn State, because it's Alabama. I don't care. Like, if San Jose State is number one in the country, I'm going to watch San Jose State, and they're number one in the country because of their players. Partially the coach, too, obviously can make a difference. But point being, like, you're looking for good football, ultimately. We talked about that when we were talking about XFL stuff for the last year plus, Troy. But so, to me, like, again, from the outside looking in, I think it's fairly common sense to say, like, yeah, these players deserve something. Now, is that something worth a scholarship and free tuition and, room and board, whatever you want to include in that, meals, training, training facility just for your team, is that enough? Or do they actually deserve money, a stipend? That's kind of the question. Like, these kids do get something. It's not as though they get absolutely nothing.
They get over $100,000 if they stay for 4 years.
Right. And this is just talking about
they walk away from school, unlike you and I, when we graduated from the great University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, we walked away with a handful of debt that we had to pay back.
Right.
These college athletes, should they decide to graduate, they don't have to pay back any student loans, which take a good 15 years to pay back. That's if you don't do any deferment or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that is kind of a special treatment.
Oh, yeah. There was a sports radio show host, before I really turned it over to you, Troy, there was a sports radio show host a few years ago who said, like, my daughter's, like, a pretty good volleyball player. Like, if she ends up being really good, like really, really, really good, and Stanford wants to, quote-unquote, exploit my daughter, a.k.a., like, give her a scholarship and she can play and not get paid for it, again, paid as in, like, pure cash, then please exploit my daughter and take her to Stanford and just give her a full ride to Stanford so she can play volleyball. Absolutely. Exploit her. It basically is what he said. And I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that, like, for Division III, and you're not getting many scholarships, and correct me if I'm wrong, Troy, I think Division II you only get, like, and maybe it depends on the sport, you only get a few. I don't even know. I know you coach soccer.
It depends on the sport. You've heard the story when I transitioned Upper Iowa from D3 to D2. The men's program got 3 scholarships. The women's program got 9 because of Title IX. And that's all going to be part of this. And I told you I got worked up on LinkedIn yesterday because I was having a conversation with a guy that was so narrow-minded as far as his thought process in Division III. It's the nature of the beast. Doesn't get paid. Well, that's not the only thing. If you're going to pay football, you've got to pay all the sports. Why do you think Title IX was implemented? And if you don't pay every athlete under the NCAA umbrella, there's going to be lawyers lined up outside the courthouse to sue the NCAA. So you can't just pay football and basketball players. You've got to pay them all. Thus, that's why Title IX came out. I lived through it when I was a D2 coach. My men's program, did I want 9 scholarships? Yeah, but the women, it had to be equal percentage to the number of male athletes. Therefore, men's soccer got cut. Women's soccer got boosted. So, Shane, I'm going to turn it over to you. What do you think? College athletes, should they get paid?
That's a great question. It's something, I went to college. I play a little sports. It's something that I've thought deeply about in the past, and I'm a data and numbers kind of guy. So whenever I'm on a topic, I like to dig in and see the data and get an understanding. So the way I look at it, I'm going to have kids in a few years I would love for them to go to UW-Madison. So I have a pretty good idea of what a year there costs, right? So it's about $30,000 a year for undergraduate program if you're a resident in the state of Wisconsin. Now, if that's your stipend for being an athlete, and that's covered in your tuition, $30,000 is a pretty good chunk of money for the course of a year. I think the median household income in Wisconsin is only like $60,000. So the fact that you're getting $30,000 worth of compensation and you're halfway to the median household income of the state, I think is somewhat fair. Now, if you see what Barry Alvarez came out and said in the last couple of weeks, the UW football program, if they don't have a season, they're going to lose $100 million this year. So you see the revenue that these kids bring to the universities. Now, if you look at that number, $30,000 doesn't quite seem as fair as it did before. So it's a balance, and I know not everybody's always going to be compensated fairly for their efforts, but I think they're doing a pretty good job so far with the scholarships. And you make a great point that paying every athlete within the whole athletic department would be quite a challenge. It's hard to deviate who should be paid what based on performance, and I don't think that's fair for collegiate athletes. So it's a really difficult topic to discuss, and one I still haven't made up my mind about.
Yeah, and I put a response on the LinkedIn poll to one, I don't know if they're a listener, one of the participants, that this is a topic that we could debate. We could come up with 8,000 ideas, and then by the end of that conversation, we're back at square one. Because there's so many intricate pieces to this discussion. It's not as simple as should college athletes get paid, yes or no. That's what the poll is. But when you sit down and you look at it, there's Title IX involved. Yes, football and basketball bring in the money. I understand that. But once it's not fair, especially in the world we live in today, there will be somebody from the rugby team that sues the NCAA saying, I'm a Division I athlete, why am I not getting paid? And they're probably going to go to court, and they're probably going to win. And then all of a sudden, all this money that people think these universities bring in, it's got to be divvied up. And I looked and I did some, like you, Shane, I like data. Youngster, did you know at the university you like, Ohio State, they have 1,038 student athletes. That's what they have. I looked it up. In 2019, 2020, 1,038 student athletes. So that means you would have to pay 1,038 athletes weekly, monthly. And when are you at school? August through March? Roughly 6-7 months. So if you pay them $100 a week, $400 a month, that's what you're talking, when I did the math, at $100 a week for almost 1,100 athletes, you're talking about $3 million just right there, to put in their pocket at $100 a week. Right. Do I think $100 is fair? Go back to my playing days, which I'm very old. $100 would have been like, oh, I'm in heaven. $100 today, you can probably take the Mrs. Youngster out to eat, and $100 will be gone just like that in a night if you go to a nice place, right?
Yeah.
So I did it at $100. And my quick thought, and then we'll move on, and I'll get both your thoughts on this. Again, I've thought about this question for 5 years because we bring it up every year. I played college athletics. I coached college athletics. The thing is, I really got stirred up when that gentleman said, Division III, well, you can't pay him. It's nature of the beast. Well, guess what? I was a Division III athlete, and this really got me, and I'll probably get going with right now talking about it. I played Division III athletics at UW Whitewater. And no, I didn't get paid. No, I didn't get a scholarship. I paid for my own school. But darn it, even if I wanted to work during the school year, I couldn't. I was an athlete. My day consisted of getting up, eating breakfast, going to class, going to practice, going to eat, working out again, studying, going to sleep, and doing that over and over and over. And you know what? While I was getting on a bus to go to a game, my roommates were getting in the car going to work. But I couldn't work because I chose to play athletics. Luckily enough, I came from a family where mom and dad would help me if I needed a couple bucks. But I also busted my tail in the summer in between working out to get ready for next season, to have a part-time job, to have spending money for the whole year. My thought to this is, you want to pay student athletes, you pay them like employees. The guys that work for me at Pepsi, they come in every day, they punch a time clock, they get paid for the hours worked. Now my guys are salesmen on a truck, they get commission. You want to pay a little bit of bonus for something, figure it out, I don't know. But the bottom line is they come in, they get paid for the hours that they participate, and everybody gets paid the same minimum wage amount or whatever amount you want to say it is. That's my thought. Maybe you can tinker with the amount that's paid in D1, D2, D3. Maybe the amount is based on the university's overall income. But bottom line, you want to pay college athletes, you pay them for the time that they participate, and I'm air quoting, treat them like employees. You practice, 10 hours a week, 12 hours a week? Fine. Your stipend is based on 12 hours of participation. This is the fee that we came up with at this university. That's my thought. It's going to cost a lot of money if you do it. But I do think that as a student athlete, that there should be some kind of stipend involved. I shared this on the poll. There were times that we would go out for a captain's dinner. Usually every Thursday, it would be a pasta dinner to get ready for the weekend. Pasta is a good meal to have when you're an athlete. So we would go and have a pasta dinner, or we'd go to a buffet. And I had to borrow, I told you this yesterday on the show, youngster, I had to borrow my teammates' money because we couldn't work. And some of these kids come from families that don't have spending money. So to have a little bit of spending money every week to get a pizza, to go out to a movie, to do something, I think is something that is not unreasonable. But I think a lot of people are thinking, pay college athletes life-changing money like the NFL. No. You want to pay them, give them enough to have a little bit of fun when they're not participating in athletics. That's all I got. Youngster, I'll turn it over to you. Then Shane can wrap around on what I just said, and then we can move on.
I think the one thing I want to say is the money has to come from somewhere. I'm with you that like $100 a week. I mean, that's okay. Like at least you can go out to dinner once or twice. You can go grocery shopping and get the essentials you need for $100 a week. You can do that with $100. I know it sounds ridiculous to adults, but $100 for a college kid.
Shop at Aldi's. $100 goes a long way at Aldi's.
Maybe you can't literally get everything you need, but I mean, ramen, pizza, nuggets, mac and cheese.
You could get a lot of Interpeak coffee with $100 too.
That's also true. That's very true. But so, I'm all in favor of that. And you mentioned as a D3 athlete, like all the things you had to do, you didn't have time for a job. And certainly with this NIL, name, image, likeness, probably, actually going to happen. As a D3 athlete, you're not making money off your name. That's just not happening.
No, I wasn't making money anywhere in Whitewater. People knew who I was, but I wasn't going to the car dealer and signing autographs as a Division III player.
Yeah. Point being, you had no way of making money. Like, at least even players like at Alabama, Ohio State, they'll have a way of making money soon, just going to McDonald's and signing autographs.
And I'm okay with that.
Oh,
I'm 100% okay with that.
Yeah, me too. I think those are the athletes that are truly getting shafted, are the ones that can make, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they're forced to stay and, play whatever. Or if it's your decision, then so be it. But for football in particular, these players are literally forced to cannot play in the NFL until they're, 3 years out. However those 3 years come to be. But so with you, Troy, I think it's the D3 athlete is truly the one who gets screwed over because they don't even get scholarships, and most D2 athletes don't get scholarships. So you're really
that's where I got worked up when he said nature of the beast, and I'm like, you know what, dude? You never endured a D3 season. I endured 5 because I redshirted my first year. So 5 years of blood, sweat, tears, all that. And for what? Because I love to play soccer.
In fairness,
I want to take it back. I'd do it again. I just love the game. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to get the point across to those people out there that I did everything in my 5 years that a player at Wisconsin did playing D1 soccer.
Right.
I did exactly the same thing every day. And I did it because I love to play. It's
Right.
not that I'm better than those players. It's just that a D3 athlete participates and does the same exact things as a D1 athlete. Okay, maybe we weren't quite as good. And you've heard the story, youngster. I was recruited by D1. I was recruited by Green Bay. I was recruited by Illinois Chicago. I didn't want to go there. I wanted to go to Whitewater. So I turned it down. My mom was pissed off. She's like, why are you turning it down? I'm like, I don't want to stay at home. I'm going to Whitewater. So you know what? There are D3 athletes out there that are as good as D1 athletes.
Yeah.
That's why I get worked up when people brush D3 athletes under the rug. Because you know what? Some of those D3 athletes, they are D1 quality. Maybe they chose to go to the school they did, like I did. And again, I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else, but it's a reality. D3 athletes are darn good.
No, yeah,
I'm getting all worked up.
There's plenty of D3 athletes, not loads, but there's plenty of D3 athletes that make, the MLB, the NFL, the NBA.
Bob
There's a guy on
Whitman.
the Heat. Yeah. There's a guy on the Heat right now who's an absolute gunner from three. I mean, I was sitting here and
I'm just throwing names out, youngster, as you're talking. Whitewater alum that made it big.
Yeah.
Guys that I knew.
Yeah.
I knew Bob
Right.
Wickman. I knew Matt Turk.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's plenty. But, yeah, the money has to come from somewhere. That's a huge issue in all this. If you do pay every single player, and at the end of the day, if there are athletes that need it, it's the D3 ones who actually come out of college in true debt, tens of thousands of dollars of debt, if not hundreds of thousands, depending on where you go, because they don't get scholarships. And again, most D2 athletes as well. But so those are the ones that truly need some sort of stipend, in my opinion, not the football players at Alabama, in my opinion. That's just me.
Yeah.
But
Shane, what do you think? Any last thoughts after hearing us ramble for a little bit?
Yeah, no, I think both of you guys make great points, and I don't want to speak for the college athlete, but I think if you would poll most of them, I think they'd be quite happy with some sort of stipend that just allows them to live a little outside their means that they normally wouldn't be able to with, like you said, not being able to work a job while you're an athlete at a school where you're considered to be an athlete 12 months out of the year, really. I mean, if you're a football player, football season's, half of the year, but the other 6 months you're considered an athlete and you still need to train. So the biggest issue I see is with what they're paying some of these college coaches with, Saban and Swinney. What are they making, $8-9 million a year? So you have the athletes on one side of the spectrum that are making pennies, and then you have the college coaches that are, raking in $10 million a year. So there's quite a gap, and how you close that gap, I'm not sure. That's the big question. But I don't think it's unreasonable for I don't think it's unreasonable for college athletes to be expected to be compensated for making some of these universities millions of dollars. I mean, you jump on NCAA's football shop and you can buy Trevor Lawrence branded gear at Clemson. It's not like they're selling a number 16 jersey. They actually have his name on the back. So they are blatantly making money off of this kid.
Yeah, and I think they should get a cut of that. I mean, if they're, and that's what the youngster alluded to, with Lawrence, if they're selling his jersey, yeah, I think he should be able to get a piece of that, whatever the percentage is, and some of that should go in his pocket. Because that's because of him. That's because of his skill. The fans that come to the game on Saturday or Friday night, yeah, you know what? They're buying number 16 jerseys. He should get a piece of that. They do in the NFL, and I have no problem with that. All right, youngster, let's move on. Where are we going now?
College basketball. Troy, you had mentioned that Michigan State, was it Michigan State that got a 2022 recruit, you said?
Yeah.
I'm looking online and I can't find it. There was one who, in late June, I think it was, and I know we mentioned it on the show. He was the number 1 overall recruit in 2022.
Maybe it was just a repost, but I saw it. I ran through it quickly.
Gotcha. But yeah, Michigan State's they have the number 1 rated 2022 class for college.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
There you go. But I did want to talk about college basketball for a little bit on this show because basically, and here's the big thing with college basketball is the deadline for these college basketball athletes to throw their name into the upcoming NBA draft that has come and gone, that deadline. So we know what players now are returning. We know what players are in the NBA draft, and, so we know who's going. So I have, let me see here. I've got a couple different windows open. I'm trying to find the best one. But in short, if you're looking at some of the better names that have left the Big Ten, the list is really not long. The Big Ten is getting
before you get into your list, hey Shane, let the listeners know where they can go get some great coffee.
Yeah, I'd love everybody to check out our website, interpeakcoffee.com, get some great coffee. We got some great gear on there too, so everybody can rep their favorite brand while they're out, watching their hopefully local sports if this stuff gets started back up soon.
Yep, and make sure you put the promo code SPORTS in, SPORTS. Carry on, youngster.
Big Ten. The players that are staying in the draft and actually leaving college, there's not a ton of them. There are plenty of guys who have returned. Some of them, maybe it's smart. Some of them, maybe not so much, according to, a random fan's eye. But some of the guys who are leaving, Jalen Smith, a forward at Maryland, a 6'10" guy, very productive. Obviously, that hurts Maryland. It's better to have Jalen Smith rather than having him leave. Xavier Tillman, Troy, I know you love Xavier Tillman. He is going into the NBA draft. He was a junior, so he could have come back for his senior year, but he is he is leaving for the draft. Daniel Oturu, who is a big at Minnesota. We talked about him a number of times, not just like talking about Minnesota and the team and the games itself, but we talked about him a couple times. He was a sophomore, but he was incredibly productive, and it's like, at the end of the day, what can you do if you come back? Can you really?
Yeah, there's nothing. I mean, this is the guy where I look at and people talk about underclassmen going to the draft. I mean, what's this guy coming back to? He's going to play at Minnesota and maybe be a bubble team in the NCAA tournament. Does he really have a chance to go through? Maybe he can carry the team and make a magic. Probably not. You play in the Big Ten, one of the hardest conferences in America. What more does this guy have to prove other than maybe make a run at a title? But are you really making a run at a title at Minnesota? The answer is no. So for him, I pat him on the back. Go take your chances, big guy. He's a good college player.
And especially
it'll be good for Wisconsin Badger fans that he's gone. So go to the NBA.
Especially for a guy that averaged, basically 20 and 10 and over a couple blocks a game. At the end of the day in basketball, the older you are.
Yeah, what is he going to average next year? 24 points a game?
Right. I mean, can he expand his game and show to scouts that he's better? Sure. But that also comes at the cost of, okay, you're a year older now. There's freshmen who are 2 years younger than you, or potentially 3 years if you're able to graduate high school early. So the older you are in the NBA draft, truly the more diminishing it is. The NFL, it's almost like no one even looks at that. You can be a super young NFL prospect. That really doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Hey, this kid he's 20 and he's in the NFL draft. Okay, great. Still give me the 22-year-old who's a better prospect. No one even cares in the NFL. The NBA, people care a lot if you're 20 or you're 18. So that's a huge thing. If you're able to be potentially a first-round pick, or for some of these kids, as we've mentioned before, Troy, we have no idea what their family background is. If they're extremely in poverty and just need money, and you have a chance of being drafted a year or two in after playing college, and you want to take your chance, go ahead. And if you don't get drafted in the NBA, you head overseas and you start playing for money that way.
You can make a little bit of bank over there. Hey, Shane,
Absolutely.
Feel free to jump in anytime. We interrupt each other on this show, so if you've got something to say, say it.
The last
Yeah.
player I want to say. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Shane.
No, I was just going to say, with college basketball, I've 100% been out of the loop since March. I was really looking forward to March Madness, where everything kind of came crashing down. It's just been something that's escaped me for a while. So football still stays on top of my mind, but basketball, especially college, has kind of been swept under the rug these last few months.
Yeah. That March Madness tournament, especially last year, and it seems like people say this every year that any team could have won it, but truly last year it was one of those years where there were no true elite teams. Like people were thinking like, hey, Gonzaga maybe, and it probably wasn't even like a top 3 Gonzaga team in the last 10 to 15 years.
Man, we were all jacked up, youngster, because the Big Ten was going to break their own record for teams in the NCAA tournament.
Right. Yeah. Like that would have been cool. It would have been very cool to see teams like Rutgers in the NCAA tournament. Rutgers would have been in. North Carolina wouldn't have.
So here's the crappy part. Here's the crappy part, youngster. So the streak of years not making the NCAA tournament continues because they didn't officially make the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
I know there's an asterisk there, but it'll still be number of years not in the tournament. So, Shane, I'm going to throw it to you quickly, youngster, before you continue. Shane, I know you'll be biased because you're in Wisconsin like me, but the youngster and I have said on our show, and we're going on 5 years on Go Big or Go Home. 5 years, youngster. Be 5 years in January. We have said this probably, youngster, last 2 years, 3 years, that we believe that Big Ten basketball can be one of the top conferences in America when it comes to competitive basketball. What are your thoughts, Shane?
I think it is currently. I mean, you look at what some of the teams, and Michigan State's constantly a top 5 team. You have Ohio State, Wisconsin, Michigan. I think already they should be in that conversation. Certainly it'd be nice to get an NCAA championship back to the conference and to the region. And I personally was pretty excited for the tournament last year just because a few weeks out before March Madness, the Badgers were kind of written off, and then they got hot down the stretch and ended up winning a share of the Big Ten title. So I was really excited to see what they can do, and I would have to say that the Big Ten certainly needs to be in that conversation year after year for best conference in college basketball.
Yeah, it's 10 deep, right, youngster? 10 teams deep. Not all 10 are going to win the title.
Right.
But you're talking competitive games, night in and night out, 10 teams. So
10 legitimate.
Go ahead.
I was going to say 10 legitimate teams that could have pulled one upset in the NCAA tournament and been in the second round. I mean, again, there would have been 10 in period. That's more than the ACC. It was straight up a better conference than the ACC last year. It was the best conference in college basketball.
Yeah, top to bottom, and we discussed it with our listeners why it is the best. You go top to bottom, ACC, Big Ten, and you're looking at it. Can the number 10 team in the ACC beat Duke? Probably not. Can the number 10 team in the Big Ten beat Michigan State? Well, Wisconsin tied for the title, so you throw them.
Right.
My point is, we can probably all on this call, on this show, agree that Michigan State is the best basketball team talent-wise in the Big Ten. So can number 10 beat Michigan State? Yeah, Michigan State had a few losses in the Big Ten last year. Now, usually if it's a series, Michigan State's probably going to pull it out. But on any given night, number 10 can beat number 1 in the Big Ten. That's the cool thing about this conference. Carry on, youngster.
Yeah, so, again, Jalen Smith, the forward from Maryland, is going into the draft. Xavier Tillman, the forward from Michigan State, going into the draft. Daniel Oturu, big man from Minnesota, going into the draft. Last guy, Caleb Wesson, a big from Ohio State, going in the draft. Again, all those programs will suffer because of that, but there is nobody from Wisconsin. There is nobody from Iowa. By the way, Luca Garza, who could have been Player of the Year last year as a junior, is coming back. He's coming back to Iowa.
Well, and I was waiting for you to bring his name up, and at first it was like, oh, really? Coming back? And then I thought about it. He's a big, right? So what does he have to gain? He has actually probably a lot to gain because he has to develop that outside shot and be consistent to play in the NBA. He's got to shoot from the outside. He can't just be a rim protector and a rebounder. if he can develop his outside shot, and he's okay. Yeah, but the thing is, he's got to develop that, and I think he can do that one more year in school. I think it was a good move for him to come back. I mean, it's purely probably selfish reasons, but for Garza, because I was reading about it when I saw that he was coming back, and people were like, oh, yeah, he should. No, you know what? I think he is one of these. This is one of those where I think coming back for him actually could be a benefit because he can then develop a consistent shot, which he's going to need to have in the NBA.
By the way, mathematically, this doesn't make sense, but it does in my mind, and other people can disagree with me completely here. But he was a junior. If you're a junior going into the NBA draft, you're considered older. If you're a senior going into the NBA draft, you're still considered you're just old. You're just not 18, 17 years old. You're not. You're 21. You're 22. Junior to senior, that discrepancy going into the NBA draft to me is not a lot. Freshman to sophomore year, that can be a big thing potentially because a lot of these players, if you go out after your first year, it's just assumed like, damn, these kids are really talented, even if you don't watch anything. If you just see a kid who was a freshman opt into the NBA draft, is like, okay, they're really talented. I don't even have to look at the stats. He's talented. Whether they under-delivered or over-delivered their first year in college, if you're a freshman going out, it's like, okay, there's a lot of potential here. There's a difference to me between like a freshman coming out or a sophomore. There's a bigger gap there compared to a junior, senior. That's just my opinion. But there's a number of guys who have decided to come back that are huge names. Illinois, one of their guards, Ayo Dosunmu, he's coming back. Kofi Cockburn is the 7-footer for Illinois, 7 feet, 285 pounds. He was a force on the inside.
Illinois is going to be a good little team next year, youngster.
Troy, there was a college basketball writer who has Illinois as, I think it's number 3, number 5. It was one of those.
A little high. I mean, on paper, they're going to be good. I don't know if I'd vote them all the way up there, but they're going to be a good team.
Troy, I've loved them for 2 years now, and they've got everyone back. Like I truly believe they're a top 10 team, and a lot of people think Iowa is a legitimate national.
So sorry, Illinois fans, the youngsters on your bandwagon, which means you're probably going to have a lot of heartache next year. Sorry.
I'm not you with what was that one team in football who you would get on and then they'd be absolutely terrible.
Minnesota. I didn't talk about Minnesota football for a whole year.
That's right.
Like I went mute when you talked about Minnesota. I just went mute.
That's right.
Because every time I said something good about them, they went and pooed the bed. So I just shut up and I stopped talking about them.
Yeah. I
felt bad. I felt bad for all the Gopher fans.
I've liked Illinois basketball for a couple of years now, and this team again is basically getting everybody back. I thought they could have made a nice run in the tournament last year, and they're getting everyone back. I do think they're going to be a top 10 team. People
give
are
my Badgers some love, youngster. Everybody's coming back too.
That's Troy. Here's the thing: this writer, he's a known writer, a college basketball guy. He knows his stuff. He predicts preseason poll, and I know this means nothing to a lot of people. But
give me the preseason poll, youngster. You know how much I love those.
I know. But point being, there were 3 Big Ten teams that are assumed to be probably top 10 teams to start the year next year. None of those 3 teams are Michigan State. They're not considered the top dog anymore. Iowa is one of those. Illinois is another. And then Wisconsin, again, they lost nobody. And they had won a share of the Big Ten title a year ago. They lost, what's his name? Let me see here. Hold on. Brevin Pritzel. That's their lone loss. They're getting back Trice. They're getting back Davison. They're getting back Rovers. They're getting back Potter. They're getting back Aleem Ford. They're getting back everybody except Pritzel. They should be pretty dang strong again because they were.
Yeah, they will be.
Arguably, yeah, they should be really good.
Pritzel was streaky. He was streaky.
Yeah.
But when he was on, he was on. Don't get me wrong. When he was on, he was on.
I love Iowa. Again, the last couple of years, I've been an Iowa and Illinois guy.
Youngster, I'm already getting excited for January. Hopefully there's a basketball season. And this is how this show started. We started the show as a basketball show. But I'm excited again to talk about Big Ten basketball because look at all the teams we're talking about. And it's not the Michigans and Michigan States and Indianas. It's teams around there. And we didn't even talk about, like, the Penn States that were near the bottom. I mean,
right.
You know, those teams, they are what they are, right? So we'll see what happens. But I don't know. What else you got, youngster?
Michigan State's got, Rocket Watts is coming back. Aaron Henry is the big name. He's coming back. Yes, they lose Cassius Winston because he was a senior. Yes, they lost Xavier Tillman. But they've they always
well, you mentioned in the beginning, I like Tillman. I do. I did. Yeah. I thought he was a great college basketball player. Not sure what his NBA career is going to be. Maybe a good role player, a good sixth man.
Right.
I wanted to mention this too before when you were talking about Garza. I'm now going to classify some of these older guys that stay in school. I'm going to call them Brogdons. That's what I'm going to call them because Brogdon stayed at Virginia, went to the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah.
He's going to have a good NBA career. Some of these guys are not going to be lottery picks, and they're not going to be superstars in the NBA, but they can still go play and contribute to a team and have a good, solid NBA career, like Brogdon. So I'm going to call those guys like Garza's. I'm now going to call them Brogdons. So Garza's a Brogdon.
By the way, Rutgers is basically getting everyone back. They're getting 8 of their top 9 guys back. Like, they should be a top 25 team again. Michigan loses 2 guys. So the Big Ten is going to, I think, again, it's going to be the best team in college basketball, best conference in college basketball. Ohio State loses a few. Indiana loses a few. But yeah, so Big Ten, you can consider them winners when it comes.
Maybe we can start the hype of getting an all Big Ten Final Four. Maybe let's start that hype. All Big Ten Final Four next year.
I'm going to be rooting for Iowa and Illinois so hard next year, Troy. It's not even going to be funny. But anyway, Shane, what do you have to add here?
Yeah, I'm excited for Big Ten to kick off, especially for the Badgers. They've done a good job of pulling in some big recruits. The one thing I wish our top recruits would stop leaving the state. That just seems like it's our Achilles heel, as we just can't recruit our top talent, and the top 1, 2, 3 guys seem to go find, those big-time programs. And I think that after Bo Ryan left, our recruiting hasn't been as rock solid as it was originally. And, I think that's the key piece of the puzzle for them to be able to get back to that championship level. You got to keep your guys in state and get them in the program.
Yeah, and it's weird that they don't. I mean, you're competing against Marquette if you're looking in state, but it's not even like they're staying in state. They're going elsewhere. And yeah, I'll agree with you, Shane. As a Badger fan, it's kind of annoying that we let our top guys get out of the state. What's going on there? Why doesn't the top guy want to play for the Badgers? And it's not like they've been a crap program. So what's going on there? We'll see what happens, though. Anything else to add, Shane?
No, I just want to say I'm excited, for Interpeak Coffee to be your main sponsor going forward, not only for the Go Big or Go Home podcast, but for all the other platforms. And I'm looking forward to joining you guys, every so often, as much as you'll have me.
That's right. Well, we definitely enjoy having Interpeak be our virtual studio sponsor, which covers all of our shows. So before we go, Shane, before we let you go, let the listeners know one more time where they can get some great coffee. Actually, share a little bit more, too, because you have different variations of coffee. Like my wife has the Keurig, and you got the K-Cups. So you can get K-Cups. You can get a sampler pack. I just saw online yesterday you have this, like, cinnamon flavor coffee. I was intrigued. My wife is now intrigued by that. I guarantee she may have already ordered it today. I don't know. But it was like a cinnamon-type flavor coffee. Share a little bit of the specialty brews, the K-Cups, because it's not just like, it's just a gourmet coffee. You got, like, all kinds of different coffees. I know you can't go over them all, but just share a few. Some of your favorites.
Yeah, no, that's Great. So yeah, what you're referring to would be our Cinnabon. So it actually is meant to taste like a cinnamon roll, minus the calories, which is great for those of us who are in their 30s and don't always have the
another
that
youngster.
we did back in college.
Another youngster.
But that's the cinnamon roll is a great one. We have caramel, mocha, French vanilla. Some of your classics. We do have some other ones that you're likely not going to find in your stores. And other popular ones we have are our single origin coffees, which are, they've kind of taken the coffee market by storm in the last few years. What they are is they're literally coffee sourced from a single farm or region, where most of the coffee you'll buy even in a Starbucks bag or whatever it may be at your grocery store, they're taking a bunch of different beans around the world and blending them together so that you don't get a bunch of different variances in your coffee, where the ones we offer, they're actually from a very small area in the given country. So we have coffee from Brazil, Mexico, Bali, Colombia happens to be my favorite, Tanzania, Honduras. And then we also have all your classic blended coffees, French roast, Italian roast, donut shop, you name it. So we do have quite a variety. And if you go on the About Us page, both my direct email and my wife's direct email are in there, and you can learn a little bit about us. And if anybody wants to know about our story or about our coffee, feel free to reach out. We're happy to engage with anybody that's got some interest in us, and we look forward to hearing from everybody.
Yep, interpeakcoffee.com, folks. And then when you order, put the promo code SPORTS, SPORTS, and get 10% off your order. What else we got today, youngster? Anything else?
Go Hawkeyes and go Fighting Illini basketball. Can't wait.
Come on. If you're going to start with Go Hawks, it better be Go Hawks for UW Whitewater. Come on.
Yeah, them too. Yeah, they're fine too. I can't wait for Big Ten basketball. I really can't. Praying there's a season.
Yeah, hoping. We'll see what happens with college football. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening in on the Interpeak Coffee Virtual Studio. This was Go Big or Go Home. We were joined by the owner, Shane, and for the youngster, I am Joe Man. Hope you enjoyed the show today. We'll get back at you next week. Same place, same time. Enjoy, everybody.